What if I told you that somewhere on Earth, people don't just sleep in the cold? They sleep inside a world where cold behaves like a living force. Not discomfort, not winter, but something that actively tries to erase warmth itself. No heaters, no modern comfort systems, no reliable insulation like you know it, just survival knowledge, passed down through generations in one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. The Yakut nomads of Siberia live in Yakutia, where temperatures can drop so low that even breathing feels like swallowing ice. So the question isn't just, how do they live here? It's far more disturbing. How do they sleep here and wake up again? Let's begin with something strange. What do you think happens to a human body when it falls asleep at -50 degrees Celsius? Does it slowly shut down like a machine running out of fuel? Do you wake up shivering, or do you just not wake up at all? In most places, cold is an inconvenience. You add a blanket, you close a window. But here, cold is not background weather. It is pressure. It is weight. It is something you negotiate with every single night. So here's a question nobody usually asks. If the outside air can freeze your breath instantly, what does sleep even feel like? Because in Yakutia, sleep is not surrender. It is strategy. And it starts with something unexpected. Why would anyone deliberately sleep close to animals? Not for companionship, not for tradition alone, but because animals are heat engines. A horse, a cow, even a dog produces constant body heat. And in a frozen environment where every degree matters, that heat becomes survival itself. So imagine this, a shelter in the Siberian night, silence outside so cold it feels like it has texture, and inside, humans sleeping near living sources of warmth. But then another question appears. If animals create heat, why not just rely on them completely? Because heat is only part of the problem. The ground beneath them is worse. Frozen soil doesn't just stay cold, it pulls heat out of anything that touches it. So what happens if a human simply lies on it? Does the body lose heat evenly, or does it begin to shut down in layers? The answer is brutal. Heat escapes downward first, so they don't sleep directly on the ground. They build systems, layers of fur, wood, fabric, air pockets trapped between materials like invisible insulation. Not modern engineering, but instinctive physics learned through survival. Because here is the real secret. Cold doesn't enter you, heat leaves you. And once it leaves fast enough, your body stops negotiating. Now another question, even stranger. Why not just keep a fire burning all night? Wouldn't that solve everything? Warmth, light, safety. But fire in an enclosed space creates a second danger. Oxygen doesn't refill itself inside sealed shelters. So a strong fire can slowly turn into something just as deadly as the cold outside. So they face a contradiction, freeze in silence, or risk suffocation in warmth. And so they choose balance. Small fires, controlled flames, carefully managed heat that never becomes dominant. But then comes something even more unsettling. What happens to your breath when it freezes? Every exhale releases moisture. In extreme cold, that moisture doesn't disappear. It crystallizes on walls, on fabric, near sleeping faces. So over time, a shelter becomes a slow-growing system of ice formed from human life itself. So another question appears. If ice builds from your own breath, how do you sleep without trapping yourself in it? The answer is subtle. Positioning, never fully covering the face, never sealing warmth completely. Because moisture must escape, or it becomes ice that blocks airflow. And then there is the body's own betrayal. What happens if your feet get cold first? Is it just discomfort? No, it is the beginning of shutdown. The body protects its core, heart, brain, lungs, by pulling heat away from extremities, fingers, toes. The first sacrifices. So Yakut nomads obsess over one thing, feet insulation. Because once the extremities fail, the rest follows silently. And now imagine another scenario. What if someone falls asleep outside, even briefly? At those temperatures, there is no dramatic warning. There is calm, a strange warmth, a feeling of heaviness that feels almost peaceful. But that feeling is not peace. It is the body slowing down, so how do they prevent that? By never trusting the cold. Not even for a moment, because the cold does not rush, it does not announce itself, it waits. But here's something even more unexpected. Why do they still prefer natural fur over modern synthetic materials? Isn't modern technology supposed to be better? In extreme cold, not always. Because fur doesn't just trap heat, it manages moisture. And moisture is the real enemy. Wet fabric freezes faster, becomes rigid, becomes a heat drain instead of protection. So survival here is not about innovation, it is about understanding what actually fails first. Now another question rises. How does the body even adapt to this over time? Do they become immune? Or just more aware? Neither. The body learns efficiency, circulation changes, awareness sharpens, sleep becomes lighter, more responsive, because deep unconscious sleep in this environment is not safe. And finally, one last question appears. Why live here at all? Why choose a place where even silence feels dangerous? Because for them, this is not an empty, frozen land. It is structure, it is memory, it is identity built through generations of adaptation. Every decision has meaning, every layer of clothing is knowledge, every night is a continuation of survival intelligence that most of the world never had to learn. And maybe the real question was never, how do they survive this cold? But instead, what does it mean to live in a place where every single night, the environment is negotiating whether you continue or not? And if you listen closely in that silence, sometimes you can almost hear